And my guest today on the program is Dr. Emeka Okengwu, Development and Management Consultant and our reliable analyst on finance and economy. You're welcome to the program once again.
Thank you, ma'am.
Now we're talking budget 2013. Dr. Goodluck Jonathan presented a 4.292 trillion budget for the year. Let's break it down.
Let's break it down. First and foremost, is it any departure from what happened in 2012? That would be the beginning of the breaking down. And have we been able to now get over the euphoria, of the struggles of pass and no pass, implement and don't implement of the 2012 budgeting system? If the answer is a yes, then we can be talking about a fresh start. But if we have maybe some, maybe not so well, we might need to now look a little deeper into our budgeting process to probably now find out or dig it a little bit out of range to see what the issues really are. And I think the issues of budgeting in this country is actually where you start creating, what you might call, in parentheses, the bickering, that comes to discussing or approving the budget system in Nigeria. First and foremost, I do not know. I think maybe we might, let me crave your indulgence, for us to be able to now define a budget first and foremost, and then define what comes into a budget process, and probably helps everybody to now get a better understanding, of why we have issues in the Nigerian budgeting system. Like the Senate, said, the budgets are mere estimates that can only now get the force of law when it now goes through what you can call National Assembly scrutiny and approval. From our own perspective, we cannot define budget, as actually a financial plan that you have couched in figures. And in defining the budget as either mere estimates or financial plans, it simply means that there's a framework that now begins to now develop, this is your financial plan. And the beginning point in a budget process is what they call midterm revenue framework. Now, what does your midterm revenue framework now encompass? It encompasses your sources, of funding that budget. And again, remember, madam, that you will have what we call the federation account, from where we derive the estimates, or what you call the envelopes that now make up the national budget. Now, when you leave that perspective of your midterm expenditure framework, you now go to where they call your midterm fiscal framework. Before you go to where you call your midterm expenditure framework, which is actually what created some kind of furor in the polity. When was it submitted, who submits it, and then who reviewed it, who approved it, before you now get to where you call your midterm sector strategies. Now, these are the 4 of the 14 steps in a budgeting process. So the question will be, in this particular 2013 budget, did we go through this, process of getting to probably, what now happened with the MTEF, which the House of Reps at one time, because the president, remember, was supposed to have gone, to the House of Reps. I think they said it at 4th or so of October, and they said they were still now studying the midterm expenditure framework, before they could now, be in a better position to be able to now discuss the national budget. So these are the issues. This
2013 budget has even started generating controversy before it's even passed. The benchmark issue. The federal government says $75 per barrel. The Senate said 78. The House of Reps said $80 per barrel. In all this, everybody is giving its own opinion or the reason why it should stick with its numbers. Now, the federal government's at $75. Do you think that is the reasonable?
Thank you. That's why I said let us first and foremost understand, because the questions will not be pigeonholed against what had happened. Now, if we had what you call a midterm, let me even put it this way so that we don't lose focus of your question. We are saying we are predicating the budget and we are benchmarking it against crude oil prices. What about natural gas? Because when you come to even the crude oil sales, there are 2 other other what you can call subheads that also now contribute to the federation account, you're talking about royalties, and you're talking about taxes. Now, come to your benchmark. The benchmark is, let us be able to now take a safe figure. The benchmark does not mean that the federal government is going to be selling crude oil at 75 naira. It doesn't mean that they're going to be selling at $80. Okay, what it simply means is that they are now predicating whatever receipts, oil receipts are going to be getting, at a lower limit of 75, and whatever it is we get on top of this, we are going to be safe if we can sell our oil, within this range. Okay, but if we get any other thing on top of it, it's now going to enter into our excess crude account. And I'll tell you something that's quite interesting. Nobody has come out to say that the excess crude account, does not exist. What the argument is that the excess crude account has not been well managed, or is not prudently managed. And we haven't gotten the EFCC arresting anybody here. And nobody has said, okay, fine, why don't we now also look at the management of this, excess crude account, and probably, as part of what you can use it to do, use it to break, whatever budget deficits that might now occur in the process of our now, carrying out or, operating this budget. So what I'm trying to say is that the argument of the oil benchmark clearly shows you that there was no how do I put it now? There were no consultations, because in these 4 steps I've already mentioned, I tell you I'm going to take up probably up to 14. Part of your expenditure revenue is supposed to be discussed by the Governors Forum. It's supposed to be discussed by the organized private sector. It's supposed to be discussed by the civil society groups. Okay, even before you now start now, and at one stage of that budgeting process, even before it now goes to the Federal Executive Council, in trying to now throw in what you call your midterm, sector strategies, you are supposed to also now be discussing with the National Assembly. If they did all this, I don't think we would have had, this, bickering that we're having now. So what it is we're doing is that we are just throwing envelopes against what you can call fixed items. We have not been able to develop a budgeting system, like I keep telling you, that runs on a fiscal basis, that can be matrixed to programs and projects. And remember, again, that even when you're talking about these programs I'm talking about, the FRA, your Fiscal Revenue Act of 2007 actually now, gives you a window of 3 years to be able to now operate all these things I'm talking about. So until we're able to get to a point where we now realize, and this is important, I make this point. Right now, this budget, when it gets passed, it's neither going to be an executive budget, nor is going to be a National Assembly budget. Because if you listened to the Minister of Finance yesterday, when she was on AIT, what she was saying is that by the time this thing now comes out, they don't even know what's going to come out of the National Assembly. Because the moment the National Assembly now takes over whatever document you have given to them, it becomes their game. And they can jolly well change everything you've put in there and then bring out whatever it is they want to bring out for you. Now, doesn't it now make a nonsense of all your planning and all that? If by the end of the day, do you understand what I'm saying? So the budget from this perspective now of even what the executive and the legislature are saying simply just tells you that we have a situation that's going to be very, very difficult to handle.
No, but the thing now is that does the increase in benchmark guard against deficit, like the National Assembly is saying? Does it?
Well, you see what they are saying. That's what I'm saying, that if it's a very simple thing. What they're saying is, if you're going to be selling at $75 and you are now projecting a deficit of over $1 trillion, why don't you now, benchmark at $80 and then earmark $5 so that you can now be able to now bring your, deficit down to about 600 billion. And I'm saying, it is a matter of take the rope and tie the goat to a rope. You understand what I'm saying? It doesn't.
You're saying the same thing.
You're just basically saying the same thing. You are saying, okay, fine, you want $5 to be able to now, bring down, your budget deficit, and you have an excess crude account that is not in any contention. The contention here is that your excess crude account is not being well managed. And for me, I find that a little bit, strange. Because if it's not being well managed, it simply means there is misappropriation, or there is fraud, or there is some misdemeanor. And then, the law clearly states what should happen when there's misappropriation. And there's not been any audit alarm. There's not been any clear case of you're now, okay, for probably doing your oversight functions. I haven't had any time or anybody coming out to say, oh, the excess crude account, has been fraudulently managed. And if he has, then it's an offense that, the security agencies should come into. But what I'm saying is that in hitting this policy, the major issues we have here is that by the time you're getting that budget out of the National Assembly, and they have changed all your timelines and programs, and then you have spent all these months, all these weeks preparing something, and then they give it to you and say, okay, fine. What I would have thought we should have been doing now is looking at the key performance indicators that everybody has agreed to in the process of developing this budget. And then, because when you talk about the midterm expenditure framework, you're also talking about this legislature having what they call their oversight functions. Why are we not able to create a system that says this is going to be a 3-year expenditure program? Now, in month 1 to month 6, we are going to be releasing X amount of money, okay, when this and this and this has come in. Now, everything that is supposed to be why are you making this a secret document? People should be able to
say there's a medium-term expenditure.
Yes, the medium-term expenditure document. In fact, even before you get to that medium-term expenditure, which is a 4th level, by the time people should be able to now make their own contributions to what you call your midterm sector strategy, especially when you're talking about getting your private sector involved. You shouldn't be talking to 1 or 2 companies. It should be on NTA, it should be on AIT, it should be on Twitter. People should be able to make contributions to what it is they think can be able to now, so that by the time you get a whole gamut of opinions and inputs, then it's a lot easier for everyone to say, but okay, you were part of this budget from day one. This is what the issue is.
Another issue of contention now is that the National Assembly is saying that the executive has not implemented even the 2012 budget up to 30%. The executive is saying it has gone over 40% because the budget was presented in April. This implementation now, this bickering now, so to say, is it not going to affect the passage of the 2013 budget?
Well, the answer actually is in the question, because you find out that if you're saying, the 2 dates are, they are sacrosanct. This man says you are judging me from January, and that's where you're getting your 46% or your 26%. And I'm saying no. You should be able to now look at me from April, and that's where I'm getting my 26%. But the 26% now actually translates to 56%. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because out of the 26%, if you now look at total utilization, you can actually now translate it. But that's not even the issue. We have another legal thing here that probably everybody is trying to overlook. The budget is an act of the National Assembly, so it simply means that it is backed by law. And that law gives it what you can, is an annual budget, so it's a 12-month cycle. Now, this particular budget, remember, is supposed to run up till March or April of next year. Now, in presenting that budget, I didn't see where they were aligned. I didn't see where the 2012 budget was aligning to the 2013 budget. So that what we now see is that, okay, fine, we are now going to now integrate these 2 budgets, so that by the time we now start in January, everything would have now been infused together for us to run. So I think the question is not even when are they going to pass the budget. The question should be, if they pass the budget, can the executive, based on what the law says, begin to now run the budget in January? If the answer is no, what needs to be done for you to be able to now reconcile these 2 figures? More so that the law now requires you also to now start returning monies unspent into the federation account by the end of October.
Still 26% or 46%, both are still below average. What are we going to do to ensure that we implement our budget, so at least 70%, so that the average Nigerian can't even feel the impact of these budgets being passed year in, year out? Thank you.
You see, right now, there is no average Nigerian. Right now, you have the endangered Nigerian. And this budget, another question is, has it been able to now capture what you call your socio-economic realities?
Yeah.
Have you found it? Because some of the utterances that are being made, it's a little bit worrisome, it's a little bit painful. Right now, most of these things we read, I hope they are not very correct. there is an institute that has come in from Malaysia, you know, at the behest of the Ministry of Agriculture, to say that the flood, you know, does not have any impact. It will not be able to impact on any food insecurity in the country, and that they have carried out studies, and that they're actually now procuring, that the government has secured 20,000 metric tons of seed, rice seeds, that are going to plant, and then another 10,000 or something metric tons of maize that is hybrid, that the farmers are able to now start, you know, harvesting after 60 days. I mean, and I'm like, am I really reading this? Because you're talking about a flood that has taken probably a lot of poison sand, lead poison sand, from Zamfara all the way down across the country. And nobody has told you that government has set up an investigative team to be able to first and foremost look at the issues, you know, that have to do with flooding. Cholera, saline intrusion, lead poisoning, and all that. Nobody has talked about
the psychological effect of displacement.
I was going there, man. Nobody has now talked about the fact that, you see, these houses that we live in are cement. And that if you soak house in water, the likelihood is that it's going to crack. A lot of these houses built in the villages are built with very low foundations. Nobody has known us say we have set up a technical committee to even now look at habitation. And then somebody says to you, oh, there's no food, there's no fear for insecurity, there's no fear for famine. Yet you go to the eastern part of the country. Every day you guys are are showing people buying 3 cups of garri for 100 naira. And then the same budget now increases the cost of polished rice when you have lost all your rice fields. In one stroke, the same budget now, in the same context, all our silos are empty, bereft of foodstuffs. Nobody is talking about, you know, stocking them. In Kaduna, the 3 silos there have been overtaken by weed. There is no silo in this country that has 10% of grains of installed capacity. And then somebody is telling you that what it is we want to do is to run a budget of inclusive growth. It's a little bit worrisome.
Now, I will take you back to the National Assembly, still on there. Somebody has suggested that maybe they should have a congressional budget office so that some of these things that they are on one page, the executive is on another page, and then that delays what is already delayed. Should there be a congressional budget office?
You don't even need that, madam. What you need is to go through the process, a normal process of budgeting, which is even being promoted by the office, you know, by the Ministry of Finance. If you go there, the first thing you need to do is to first and foremost develop this, what you call your midterm revenue framework. All these issues of where your money is coming from, now all of a sudden the National Assembly is saying, okay, why didn't you capture the gas resources? Are you trying to say that the LNG programs are not working? We are not earning any money from there? That should have been captured at that level of your midterm. What I'm talking about now is not my thinking. It's not what I'm suggesting. It was there in our statutes. You understand? So we should have been able to now, what you see we should be able to do is not to see the budget as an executive program. More so when we know that the role of the executive in developing a budget in Nigeria is to be able to now present what you call these May estimates. It's been said publicly. They have been told publicly, you can bring in this budget. It is what we'll now put in, because we are close to the people, that you're going to now, you know, apply. So why are you from beginning? I think what we should do is, instead of now getting a congressional, you know, budget office, what we should do is to be able to now expand the scope of our budgeting process. And first and foremost, for crying out aloud, do what needs to be done. Because right now, when you are now projecting, everybody is now targeting. Let me even digress a little bit, madam. I mean, is it not a shame that in this country today we're still talking about crude oil? When every other country that joined the OPEC with us in 1945 have started in-house making their own, not only building. Iran has used Iran technology, Iran steel, to build a 600,000 barrels refinery per day. Let's not talk about Brazil. Let's not talk about Petrobras. They're coming here to help us, you know, bring their drilling equipment to help us drill. Yet you have what you call the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company, and they have been under 50,000 barrels since that company was incorporated. Why are we not talking about, you know, some regional taking over? Because another question I need to ask you, and probably you need to investigate this. All the while crude oil prices have fallen in the international market, has the price of PMS fallen? If the answer is no, which is an obvious no, why are we not focusing on now producing PMS, which releases the most important component to national development, which is petrochemical?
I will stick with oil now. I am concerned that we are a mono-economy, we are a monoproduct economy.
Yes.
And what is serious about that, what should give us concern about that, is oil theft. Daily, our oil is being stolen. There's insecurity, domestic insecurity. And now, the more worrying one is the report we're getting that there's lesser demand for Nigerian oil in the international market. Because every other person, like you said, is developing alternatives and developing in-house alternatives to our oil. Now, what should we do to diversify this economy?
I'm going to tell you something that's very funny now. In fact, I'm going to send it to your email address if you let me have it. A group in London has developed petrol from air.
See.
Madam, some scientists has been able to capture air and then I think either introduce hydrogen or something, and they have been able to get a gallon of PMS. Now, America and Europe are busy looking for satellites that are going to put inside the deserts to now, and they say that the power they can generate from the African deserts can be able to power Europe for another 1,000 years. Everybody is talking about, you see, America is now taking a new policy on natural gas, which is the cheapest source of energy and power. We are busy building a 6,000-kilometer line to take our own into Europe. Meanwhile, there is a technology they call CNG. Please, I think I need for you to write this down and check it out. Almost all the countries that have access to natural gas are converting their vehicles to CNG. It is as cheap. The cost of a 50-liter petrol, okay, is like a CNG is about 10% that cost. The compressed natural gas. Do you know what we're doing with our own? We are flaring it.
We're flaring.
And you know, when somebody tells you that, for me, you know, it is not every time you keep, you know, coming to criticize government and then, oh, people now say, okay, that government critic, that government critic. No, it's not. It's not a question of government critic. This is our country. Whatever it is we're doing, we don't have any other place to go. Some of us don't have any other passports. So what it is you need to do is that you must appreciate that when a child is crying and pointing at a direction, either his mother or his, and what you can do is to listen. You don't start hitting and beating this child. This budget, as far as I'm concerned, is okay. Again, you have a budget you call a budget that is inclusive, great inclusive. 2.4 trillion of your budget is going to recurring cost. And a lot of people do not know that it is a recurring cost that you actually have overheads, and you have more procurement in the recurring cost than you have even in your capital budget. Because every day in recurrent, you're buying fuel, you're buying diesel, you're buying scooters, you're buying
this and that.
And by the end of the day, nobody has bothered to even find out what percentage of this 2.4 trillion is actually now allocated to overhead.
Now, do we expect a better budget performance in 2013?
The answer is in the question, no.
Do we expect a better budget performance?
It is not possible, because it cannot happen. The only way we can be able to now have a better performance of our budgeting system is to first and foremost do a budget that fits our need, that is predicated on our socio-economic realities. That's it. The moment we're able to begin to do that, use what we have, use what God has given to us, our natural resources, our human capital, and then begin to now develop what we can call a proper substructure model that can begin to grow our economy. Apart from that, it's going to be procurement. This budget, my last word, is procurement laden, and we do not have the capacity to contribute to whatever we are going to procure from that expenditure.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for coming on Finance and Economy.